Hello guys, this is Orof and a warm welcome back to my channel. In this video we're gonna take a look at a brand new wizard PvP build. I've been trying to create a battle mage for quite some time and I think I've managed to build something that works quite well, to be honest. And let's begin by taking a look at the skills I'm using. I use the electrocute primary skill. I'm not gonna use it a lot. And in the first skill slot I use slow time, in the second skill slot teleport, in the third skill slot arcane wind, and in the fourth and final skill slot I use lightning nova. Let's continue by looking at the set pieces I'm using. I'm using 2 pieces of Vitus Urge because I want to have as much uptime on slow time as possible. I use 4 pieces of Grace because I will do a lot of ticks of damage on the targets, and I also use 2 pieces of Baron because I do use a lot of crowd control in this build as well, so I want to prolong those durations. Let's continue by taking a look at the essences, and let us first go through the essences slot by slot, and then I'm gonna explain the synergies afterwards. So in the helmet slot I use Terminus Facade, in the chest slot I use Coat of the Astrum, in the shoulder slot I use Xer's Fortuitous Ward, in the pants slot I use Fractured Footsteps, in the first main hand I use Mistral Rend, in the first offhand I use Unrepentant Gale, in the second main hand I use Radiant Splines, and finally on the second offhand I use Frenetic Spark. So let us now discuss some synergies here. If we start with the helmet Terminus Facade, what this does is that whenever I use slow time, I can start using skills, and whenever I use a skill, I will reduce the remaining cooldown of all other skills except for slow time. So if I have a lot of skills with low cooldown, I can kind of spam them like this. That's really good because I will never be on cooldown almost when we are fighting. In the chest slot I use Coat of the Astrum, and what it does is that whenever I use Lightning Nova, it creates this wisp that flies around. And as you can see, the cooldown on Lightning Nova is very low, and I have 3 charges and I can recharge it by using slow time. And this means that I will have a lot of these wisps flying around. And what's also very good about these wisps is that the range is huge, so I can hit targets from very far away. In the shoulder slot I use Xer's Fortuitous Ward, as I mentioned, and what this does is that whenever I use teleport I will also gain a shield. And what's also important about this shoulder is that I will also get 1 immunity to any total loss of control effect. So if I use this teleport and then I have perhaps a Tempest who jumps on me trying to stun me, that will fail. So this is very good if I manage to time it right, and if I practice some with this build, I get better and better to know when should I make sure to use teleport again to always have this total loss of control immunity. In the pants slot, the Fractured Footsteps, I use the teleport again, and whenever I land on a target I will freeze them. So this is a stun, and this is why I'm also using 2 pieces of Baron, because I want to prolong that stun as much as possible. I also use Ship of the Stone Flesh, which is a great gem for any builds that has total loss of control, but we will talk about the legendary gems a little bit later in this video. If you look on the Mistral Rend main hand, what it does is that whenever I use Arcane Wind, it will slow a target, but if it hits an already slowed target, it will also immobilize them. What's good here is I can spam these, and they are bouncing between enemies, so what will happen is that I will make enemies immobilized all the time. And the range is also quite good on this attack, so I can both spam Arcane Wind and Lightning Nova thanks to slow time, which is very good. I also chose to include Unrepentant Gale into this build because it gives me 1 extra charge of Arcane Wind, so just a little bit of extra juice. I could also use an offhand that makes Arcane Wind slow targets when it hits them, because then it will always immobilize them on the first hit. But yeah, it's optional here. You can try both of them out and see what works best for you. I also use Radiant Splines, as I mentioned, in the second main hand, and what it does is that it basically uh, deals some extra damage whenever Lightning Nova is dealing critical hit. And when we're up and running, I will have a lot of these wisps flying around. So you can see now that they will be all over the screen attacking enemies, and there will be a lot of critical hits, and this effect from the main hand can happen once every second. So also very good with this build. And finally I use Frenetic Spark, and this is just to reduce the cooldown on the Lightning Nova. So yeah, nothing complicated here. Let's also take a look at the legendary gems I'm using, and here there are many different combinations that can be utilized. I've been opting for a little bit more survivability, but I have also tried this out where I opt for more DPS using more damage modifier gems, and it works equally well. So feel free to play around, but I use Frozen Heart, Bottled Hope, Blood-Soaked Jade, Chip of Stone Flesh, Roiling Consequence, Seeping Bile. I included Battle Guard just for this extra survivability, as I mentioned, and I also have Spiteful Blood. So as you can see here, I have a mix of some dot gems, some DPS gems, and also some survivability gems. And here you can, as I said, feel free to experiment depending on your playstyle or on your power. Maybe there are more reasons to go for maybe more survivability or more DPS. You have to try it out yourself. Let's also take a look at the Paragon I'm using. I'm using the Gladiator tree, and I have Sheet Death, I have Juggernaut, Overpower, Grizzled Veteran, and To the Victor. It's possible here that you can also try this out using the bottom 5 to the right from the Brawler tree. So yeah, there are many different combinations here that might be useful. But after playing, sometimes I kind of prefer this, and I also like to have Sheet Death because my role is not to step on the idol when we play defense or offense, but especially in defense, Sheet Death can be useful because in a very tricky situation, if they've almost pushed all the way, I can step on the idol, and yeah, I will defend it and stall it for a few more seconds, which is great. We can also look at my Reforges real quick. I don't know if these are optimal for this build, of course. I'm kind of PvE spec'd in general, so my Reforges are not optimal, but here they are, so you can see what I use right now. And we can also take a look at my secondaries. My secondaries are, they're decent, but they are quite low for PvP. I am more PvE oriented when it comes to building my character, and I've been focusing a lot on diversifying my legendary gem pool. So with these secondaries, I'm very strong against some players, but if I'm in a whale lobby, I have to adapt my playstyle a little bit because my secondaries are a little bit on the lower side. So I just wanted to mention that as well. And yeah, I think the most interesting part now would be to jump into Battleground. Let's look at a few games. I'm gonna explain to you how I play the game. I'm also gonna try to pick out a few different types of games where we maybe can learn something else as well. So without further ado, let's go. So finally we're gonna play some Battlegrounds, and what I can say first is that it takes some time to perfect the build. I mean, you have to practice a bit before you develop muscle memory, because when you play a build for the first time, you're not really used to it, and when you play the best is when you're not thinking about what you're doing. So for example, this build is kind of complicated in the beginning because it's very important that you time your teleports correctly, and you will also get a good feel about when you can engage and when you should not engage. because this build can both be played very offensively and also defensively, and you have to adapt depending on your opponents, etc, etc. But anyways, here we are in attack, and what I'm trying to do is that I always fight when slow time is active. So when slow time is about to go out, I'm trying to most of the times fall back a little bit or go forward until it's active again, because I don't want to use any skills while slow time is not active. And then I'm gonna use mostly Arcane Wind and Lightning Nova and just spam those, try to keep at a safe distance. And then I'm doing some teleports here and there, just to make sure that I have this shield up and that the immunity to total loss of control is active, because I don't want to be surprised by any Tempest that jumps on me from nowhere. I mean, I can see them on the minimap, but you know what I mean. I always want to be ready for a Tempest that attacks me, or a Necromancer that charges at me with the Wraith form. So I don't want to be caught off guard. But what you can see now when I'm using this build is that the range is amazing. So I can either play offensively. If we are outnumbering them, I can go a little bit in the front sometimes. Or defensively, if they are swarming on the idol, I shouldn't jump in and stun them with the teleport. I should stay back a little bit and just keep spamming Lightning Nova and Arcane Wind. And it will deal tons of damage. I also have the Grace that will tick all the time, since I use 4 pieces of Grace. And of course the Arcane Wind will also immobilize the enemies, so I will not only keep them at a distance thanks to that, I will also help to defend my teammates who are fighting them, because they can't move freely. And I have been playing this build now for a little while. I've been trying it out a little bit. I've had great success with it. I would say that the win rate is probably around 65 to 70%. But I do need some more practice, and I'm not 100% sure yet on when is the optimal time to engage and when is the optimal time to fall back. I need more practice to play perfectly. But while we're looking at these games now, I wanted to pay close attention, because sometimes there will be Tempests jumping on me, and there will be Necromancers who charges at me with the Wraith form, but they will not fear me or stun me thanks to the teleport. And here also I missed it there, but whenever a Necromancer is in borrowed time, I can aim on the corpse, and then I can try to time the teleport so that I freeze them before they can Wraith form. So it's quite often that I manage to kill off an enemy Necro thanks to utilizing that strategy, and it's also very satisfying. So here we are again, and we are playing offensive game once again. What I do here is that I try to show you a streak of games, so that I just don't pick out any random games that looks good. So let's try to analyze a little bit more what you can do with this build. What's so good with it is that not only does this teleport give you immunity to total loss of control, you can also escape, and if you have dots and you're almost dying, you get this shield that will help you to bandage. And yeah, and once again you can see here he's trying to stun me, but it's not possible, because he just jumps into my immunity. And then it's quite often that I'm able to fight one-on-one versus a Tempest, because I can also freeze them and immobilize them, but because they only have a window of 0.5 seconds after using Flowing Strike, where they are immune to total loss of control, or to any type of control, I mean. And this comes with practice. You can use the teleport just to keep your shield charged, but you can also use it to engage. So this is where the feeling for the game comes in. If you play the build a lot, you know when is a good timing to jump in with the teleport, when is a timing to jump back with the teleport, and when is the timing to just use the teleport sideways to stay within range, to keep damaging them and just having that shield up. So the first thing I do, I use slow time and then I spam all of the charges on my lightning nova, and then I can just keep spamming arcane wind and lightning nova all the time. I always try to also look on the minimap to know what's going on. For example, I can see now that there are some people approaching. I could maybe go here in the front just to be a little bit annoying, but they have quite a few tempests, so if two of them tries to stun me at the same time, they will manage to do so, and then I will often die. And we still have a lot of time, so we do not have to stress. And we can see now that the enemies are on the other side, all of them. And now, when there's only one here, I go in front. And he has quite difficult times to get away from me. Also, when the Tempest tries to stun you, it will also be more difficult for them to use that dash to run away from you. So, I haven't seen anyone play this build in PvP, so no one is expecting it either. So they see a wizard and they try to engage, and they think that okay, this will be an easy kill, but then it's the other way around. So yeah, I really enjoy it for that reason as well. And what's also good here to mention is that if you are fighting and you are almost alone, if you're fighting like 1 versus 3 or 2 versus 4 or something like this, then you should fall back a little bit, because then you will take all of the damage. But if you are low on health and you are outnumbering the enemies, you can sometimes stay in the battle because a lot of the hits from the enemies will hit your friends. And what I can see in many games is that people do not think about this. They are not checking the minimap and they're just running in no matter what. It's a lot better to go together. So it's better to wait for your teammates if you are alone before you are engaging, instead of just running in. Because in some games it's just a lottery. Because if you have teammates that do not think about this, if you're lucky, they will go together just because they happen to spawn at the same time. But if you're unlucky, you can see that your teammates are running in one by one. Let's say that in offense, for example, you have almost pushed all the way. Then you can see on the minimap that your teammates are running in one and one and dying one by one on the idol, because they try to desperately do this last push instead of having a bit more patience. So here's the third game. Let's keep going until we get a defensive game. And I think it's just interesting to not only watch one game, but to look at a few of them. And I can try to explain to you why I'm doing certain things in certain situations, just so that you can maybe copy it when you try this build out. So what I can often do, like in this phase, I can stay on the edge of the battle, and as soon as one of my novas is starting I mean to attack an enemy, it will keep following them and keep doing damage. And then I try to time it right when I start to go in, and maybe this was not the right timing. And this also comes with practice, because the more I play this build, the more I know exactly how to position myself at the edge of the battle. How close do I have to be the most impactful without taking unnecessary risks? And of course, sometimes you have to take risks, but you shouldn't do them as a fool. And once again, there you could see that the wizard could not stun me. This is also a very good build to hunt the backline wizards that play the stun orb builds. And yeah, so far we've been able to push the idols in all of these games quite good. And what's also important to mention is that, for example, now, if there is a Crusader on the idol and he is immune, you can go back just a little bit. There's no reason for you to stand on the idol while there's an immune Crusader on it. I can see that a lot of players, they just remain on the idols no matter what. Doesn't matter if there are tons of enemies on it, they will still stand there. And maybe that can be good sometimes, but there is no reason to stand on the idol if it will not move, especially not if you play a DPS class or a range class like me in this setup. It's a lot more important for me to keep applying pressure and to help my teammates by killing the enemies, and if I'm dead, I'm of no use. Of course, you have to maybe adapt your strategy depending on the time that you have left. Now, in this case, we also have quite of a easy game. What's also so good is that we can constantly not only do a lot of damage with the build, but we are applying crowd control all the time, both with the teleport sometimes, but also with the arcane wind. So if you have an enemy that are utilizing their dashes, trying to jump around, in many cases it will be a lot of trouble for them to get away. It's also easier to trap monks and stuff like that with the arcane wind, for example, which is also good. And yeah, we can see now on the badges here that we are dealing also a lot of damage with this build. So finally, we also have a defensive game here that we can take a look at. I always try to keep them here in this choke point, if I can, the choke point ahead, where we have one of our friends being chased at the moment. It looks like they might push us out here, but here is also good, because if the enemies are packed into one small area, they will take all of the AoE damage from all the skills. And also the arcane wind will bounce between enemies, so if they are standing together in a tight group, you will immobilize all of them. And you can lock them in place at a choke point, where they will take tons of damage from your teammates. And here was a great example as well, by the way. You can see now that I had my savior triggered while I had a dot. If I didn't have this teleport shield, I would die. So what I did is that I was spamming a few lightning novas and arcane wind just to recharge a teleport, so I could start using the bandage. And it saved my life that time. Or at least saved me from triggering Gladiator. What you could also see there is that the wizard is quite squishy, so when I am the one in the very front against a group like this, it's not optimal. So if we are fighting maybe 4 versus 4, I should not tank the damage. This is also something that comes with practice, to position myself exactly correct relative to my teammates, so that I don't take all the hits. And you can see there, I attack the monk. He has Shield of Zen with Califaction active, but that only gives immunity to knockback effects. So I can both use Arcane Wind and the Teleport Freeze on him. And now I'm in some trouble. Maybe I can teleport out. And yes, once again, I was saved by the shield from the teleport. They're managing to push quite well. It's okay if they push one side, but now they started to push the left side as well, which might mean some trouble for us. I should probably go over here and just help a little bit, but I decide to stay here. I don't think that's the correct choice I did in this game. I am always trying to check the minimap, and sometimes if I record the games like this, I can learn from mistakes that I make. because I can see that, okay, in this situation I made this choice, but I should have done something different. In general, when I play on defense, I usually stay on the side that they haven't pushed that far yet, because most of the teammates, they tend to go to the side where they have pushed the idol the furthest. And I've said this in some other videos, but there is no reason to panic if they have managed to push one side only, because it will get harder and harder to push it, because we will have closer and closer from our spawn to the idol. So it's better to keep stalling the other side if you've been able to do so, because if you think about it, if you have spent 3 minutes of a game trying to defend one side, why would you all of a sudden let them walk the other side for free halfway? So this is something that I try to think about. And here in these situations, it's very important that I stay alive and keep dealing damage. I'm not gonna engage in here because we have a lot of players here, so I don't have to dash in with the teleport. I can stay in the back line and keep applying pressure. And here is an example where I write in the chat, because we had some players that were focusing on the left, but then they can see that they have managed to push a little bit further on the right side, and then all of a sudden they all go to the right side. And now they walk the idol for maybe 10 seconds for free on the left side. That's why I wrote in the chat to stay left. And yeah, I mean, some people, they are annoyed if you write something in the chat. Personally, I don't do it to point any fingers and tell people that they are playing the game wrong. I just think it's fun to call out a little bit of tactics, like you would do if you play on voice. Then you would communicate with each other. So I hope that people take it the right way. And the only time I'm being toxic in a Battleground chat is usually against myself, because I can get frustrated at myself if I feel that I don't perform as good as I can. Now, for example, I stayed here on the left side even though there was no one on the idol, because I know that people will approach, and I also know that most people will probably stay on the right side there. So I try to... Ooh, I managed to survive here as well. So I try to hinder them from walking the left for free. So I'm trying to do my best to count the dots. I might die here. Oh, it's Gladiator. Perfect. I try to count the blue dots and the red dots. And even if they have pushed this idol far, if I can see that we have a lot of players defending here now, and I see that people are maybe approaching the other side, I always try to go there. Sometimes maybe I don't do it, but that's what I try to do. And now we have 30 seconds. I should go to the other side now, probably, because we have tons of people here. But I also think that we're gonna win. But I don't perform super well there. You can see now I was running to the other side and I didn't prepare my teleport. So if I would have had teleport active there, the Tempest would not have stunned me. But I started running without using one charge of teleport, and that cost me a death. And this is something that also comes with practice, because after playing a build for some time, this happens without thinking. So you can just keep improving the more you play. So yeah, now I showed you 4 games in succession. As I said, now when I was recording, I had a great win streak, but the win rate for me is around 65-70% utilizing this build. I've maybe been playing like 50 games with it. Maybe there are some optimizations to be done. I definitely need to improve my game just a little bit, but I still have to say that this build is very exciting, it's very fun to play, it's very versatile, and it's also very different from anything else that we've seen in the Battlegrounds. So I hope that you enjoyed this video and that you find this guide useful. Please let me know in the comments if you have any type of questions. And until next time, I want to wish you a very nice day or a very nice evening wherever you are. And to all of my clan members in Nyx, I would also like to say Voruk Nyx, Sholak Sol. So, bye bye!
If a boy or if a girl subscribe